Hey everyone, welcome back. It feels like every day there's another story about how much of our lives are tied to these big tech companies.
Yeah, and not always in a good way, you know?
Exactly. Like, how much control do we actually have over our digital stuff when it feels like the rules can change on a dime? Which is exactly what we're going to dig into today.
It's a big topic for sure. We've got a ton of research articles all about this idea of centralized data control
Yeah.
and why folks are so fired up about decentralized identity as like the big solution.
Right. And I think a lot of people listening probably use these platforms every day
Oh, absolutely.
and maybe haven't even thought about what these changes really mean. So we'll try to break it all down. For example, the news about EA shutting down its Origin app is a perfect example.
Yeah, that one's a classic case of what can happen when so much is controlled by one company.
Right. Like, for those who don't know, Origin is how PC gamers get their EA games. But they're
Okay.
pushing everyone to switch over to this new EA app.
Exactly, and it's not as simple as it sounds.
Oh, definitely not. They say you won't lose your games, which is good. But you have to go in and export all your data and move your whole account over.
Yep. And even if it works perfectly, it's still a huge pain. It really highlights that dependency risk.
Dependency risk.
Yeah, basically the idea that you depend on this platform for your games. So even if EA is trying to be helpful, their decision can still totally disrupt what you were doing.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, like, what if they decide to change things again in another year or two? Or just shut down the EA app completely? What happens to everyone's games then?
It's a big question, and it goes way beyond just gaming. We saw the same thing with Google recently and all the buzz about their new Gemini AI for workspace.
Yeah, that was another one that caught my eye.
Yeah.
On the surface, it sounds cool, right? All these AI-powered tools.
Yeah.
But the way they did the rollout got a lot of people worried about privacy
It was definitely a bit sneaky. A lot of people are probably using it without even realizing they're sharing more data with Google than they meant to.
because they didn't opt out.
Exactly. And it might seem like a small thing, but it shows how these decisions, even seemingly small ones, when they're made by companies that have this much of our data, they can have huge effects. It all goes back to being transparent and getting users' consent.
Which doesn't seem to be happening here.
Nope, not really.
So we've got these two
Visual
examples, right? EA and Google, both showing the downsides of having our data basically controlled by a handful of powerful companies.
Yeah.
But it's even crazier when you think about it on a larger scale. We're talking about massive amounts of data all stored in these central databases. What are some of the risks when you have all that information just sitting there?
Well, for starters, it's a huge EE target for hackers.
Worker share.
We've seen it over and over again. These systems are vulnerable, and one breach could expose the private info of millions or even billions of users.
It's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
It is, and it's not just about hackers either. There's the issue of what happens when these companies themselves decide to use our data in ways we didn't agree to.
Right? Like that whole Cambridge Analytica thing a few years back. That was a wake-up call for a lot of people.
Exactly. It showed how our data can be used for stuff we never imagined, sometimes even against our own interests.
It's like, we agree to share some data for one specific purpose, then it gets used for all sorts of other things. And it feels like our privacy has been violated.
And it makes you wonder if this way of collecting and controlling data is really sustainable long term, especially as we become more reliant on digital services for literally everything. Banking, healthcare, social media, you name it.
So if these centralized systems are so problematic, what's the alternative? Is there even one?
There is, and that's where this idea of decentralized identity comes in.
Okay, I'm listening. Decentralized identity, what does that even mean?
Basically, imagine if instead of having all these separate accounts and logins for every website,
Okay.
you have one secure digital ID that you control.
It's like a digital passport or something.
Exactly, and it would have verified credentials about you, your age, your address, maybe professional qualifications, all super secure and stored on a decentralized network.
And the key here is that I control this passport, not Facebook or Google or whoever.
Exactly. You decide what information to share with who and for how long. It puts you back in control.
I like the sound of that. But I got to be honest, this whole decentralized identity thing is it's a lot to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Could you give me a concrete example of how it would work? Like in real life?
Sure. Let's say you want to open a bank account online. Right now, you have to give them all your personal info, upload documents, wait for them to verify everything.
Yeah, it's a whole process.
With decentralized identity, you could just show them your digital passport, which would have a verified credential from someone they trust, like the government, confirming who you are.
So the bank wouldn't need to keep all that sensitive data.
Nope. They would only get the specific info they need for that one transaction. It makes things way more efficient and reduces the risk of data breaches.
Wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like decentralized identity could really change the way we interact online,
Mhm.
make it more secure and put users first.
It definitely has the potential, and it's not just about us as individuals. Businesses would benefit too.
How so?
Think of all the time and money companies spend on verifying identities and making sure they're following all the data privacy rules. Decentralized identity could make all that way simpler, reduce costs, and build trust with customers.
Sounds like a win-win,
It could be, but like any new tech, there are hurdles to overcome. One of the biggest is just awareness.
right? Most people have no idea what decentralized identity even is.
Exactly. So people need to understand what it is, why it matters, and how it could make their lives better.
It's a big shift from how we think about our digital lives now, almost like we have to unlearn everything and start over.
And there are technical challenges too. The tech behind all this is still evolving. We need to develop common standards so everything works together, that kind of thing.
So it's not a quick fix, but it's a long-term vision for a better digital future.
I think so. But luckily, there are companies out there working to make this vision a reality.
You mentioned companies working on this, and it makes me think of some of the stuff we've got in our research here, like ArcBlock. They're doing some really interesting things with decentralized identity. What sets them apart?
Well, one thing that really stands out is their focus on practical applications. They're not just talking about the theory of decentralized identity. They're building real-world solutions that people can use today.
So it's not just like pie-in-the-sky futuristic stuff. It's something you can actually get your hands on.
Exactly. And one of their key offerings is something called DT Spaces, which is basically a personal data vault.
A data vault. That sounds intense.
It's not as scary as it sounds. Basically, it's where you store and manage your decentralized identity and all your credentials.
So like all those verified pieces of info we talked about before, age, address, qualifications, that kind of thing.
Exactly. You control it all, and you decide what you share with different services and apps.
So it's kind of like I don't know, a secure digital wallet for my identity.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And what's really cool is that DSpaces is designed to be super user-friendly. You don't have to be a tech whiz to use it.
Well, that's good to hear, because I'm definitely no tech whiz.
Yeah, well, none of us have to be. It's all really intuitive and easy to navigate.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So they're making it easy for everyday people to use decentralized identity. But what about businesses? Are they doing anything to help companies get on board with this?
Oh, absolutely. They've got a whole suite of tools and APIs to help developers build decentralized identity into their own apps and services.
So they're making it easier for other companies to create privacy-focused products.
Exactly. And that's super important for building a truly decentralized ecosystem. The more platforms that adopt this tech, the better it is for everyone.
It sounds like they're really covering all the bases. So it's not just about the tech itself, but also the support and infrastructure around it,
Right. It's all connected.
which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so ArcBlock is definitely doing a lot to move the needle on decentralized identity. But zooming out again, what else needs to happen for this to really become mainstream? Like, what are the big hurdles?
I think government support is going to be huge.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, if governments start recognizing the benefits of this tech and actually create policies to encourage its use.
Exactly. That would be a game changer. It's one thing for individuals and companies to be excited about this, but if it's not supported at the government level, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Totally. So we need governments on board. What else?
Well, the tech itself still needs some work. It has to be able to scale as more and more people start using it. Luckily, there's a ton of research and development happening right now.
That's good to hear. It seems like there's real momentum building around decentralized identity,
Yeah.
but it's still early days.
It is, but the potential benefits are so big, I really think it's just a matter of time before it becomes the norm.
Well, that's an exciting thought. It sounds like we're on the verge of a pretty major shift in how we think about our digital lives.
Yeah, I think so. And I hope this deep dive has given everyone listening a better understanding of what's at stake.
Me too. If there's one thing I want people to take away from this, it's that we do have a choice. We don't have to just accept the way things are. We can demand better from the companies we interact with online.
Absolutely. We can choose to support businesses that respect our privacy and give us more control over our data.
And we can get involved in pushing for change at a larger level, whether it's through supporting organizations that are working on decentralized solutions or just talking to our friends and family about these issues.
Exactly. The more people who are aware of these issues, the better.
So to wrap things up, we want to leave you with a question to think about. What would the internet look like if it was designed with privacy and user control at its core? What could we create if we truly owned and managed our digital identities? It's a big question, but it's one worth asking as we move forward into this increasingly digital world. And that's it for this week's Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so we've talked about the potential of decentralized identity and all that, but what are some of the things that ArcBlock is doing to make this tech more, like, user-friendly for regular people?
One thing that stands out is their focus on building like a whole ecosystem, not just one product or platform. It's like a whole set of tools and services that all work together.
So it's more than just the technology itself. It's
Yes.
the whole support system around it.
Yeah, exactly. Because for this to really take off, it needs to be easy to use. For both people and businesses, they got to be able to fit it into their existing systems, you
Wow,
know?
that makes sense. So what does this ecosystem actually look like? Can you give me an example?
Sure. One of the things they offer is called dyed D spaces. It's basically a personal data vault.
A data vault. Okay.
Basically, it's where you store and manage your decentralized identity and all those credentials that go with it.
So it's like a digital wallet, but for my identity.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's designed to be super user-friendly. You don't need to be a computer expert to use it.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm about as far from a computer expert as you can get.
Huh. Well, you don't have to worry. It's all really intuitive, easy to figure out.
That's awesome. So they're making it easy for regular people to use this?
Yeah,
But what about businesses? Are they doing anything to help them adopt this tech too?
definitely. They have a bunch of tools and APIs for developers so they can build decentralized identity right into their own apps and services.
So they're helping other companies build more privacy-focused products.
Yep. That's the key to building a truly decentralized future, right? The more companies that get on board with this, the better.
It's like a snowball effect. So it seems like ArcBlock is really hitting this from all angles.
Mm-hmm.
But even with all that, what else needs to happen for decentralized identity to become like the standard? Like, what are the big things holding it back?
Well, I think government support is going to be crucial.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if governments start recognizing the value of this and actually create policies that support it.
Yeah, exactly. That could change everything. Because right now it's individuals and companies that are excited about this. But without support from governments, it's going to be really tough to make it mainstream.
Makes sense. So governments need to get on board. Anything else?
Well, the tech itself still needs some work. Like it needs to be able to handle more and more people using it, which is why all the research and development happening right now is so important.
Right, because it needs to be able to scale.
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of work to do, but also a lot of potential. It's kind of an exciting time to be following all of this.
It is, and I hope everyone listening feels a little more informed about what's going on.
Yeah, I think this deep dive has been super insightful. If there's one thing I want people to take away, it's that we don't have to just sit back and let these big companies control everything. We do have choices.
Right. We can choose to support companies that respect our privacy and give us more control over our data.
We can advocate for change and support organizations that are working on these decentralized solutions.
Mhm.
Even just talking to friends and family about these issues can make a difference.
Yeah, the more people are aware, the better. It's all about building a better future for everyone.
Totally.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, we want to leave you with this question. What would the internet look like if privacy and user control were built in from the beginning? What amazing things could we create if we truly owned our digital identities? It's something to think about as we move forward into this digital world. And that's it for this week's Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.